She was very bubbly.
Sometimes you meet someone that will forever change your life.
It was fun to be around her.
26-year-old Julie Boyd had that effect on people.
She would say who she was a child of God.
Julie had found a new job, moved to Elizabethtown, and was devotedly attending church groups, including a divorce recovery group at Severance Valley Baptist Church in E-Town.
She got her an apartment. She actually got a builder to start building a house. I mean, she was ready for her new life.
15 years ago, on New Year's Eve, Julie was rushed to Hardin Memorial Hospital by Harvey Skaggs, a man she'd met at her divorce group.
No, I didn't kill her.
She was pronounced dead upon arrival, beaten to death. The case file explains the events that led to her death started with the repossession of a truck. In December, Julie hired Skaggs, who had been assisting his uncle with PI work, and told Julie he could help.
She wanted me to try to find the truck that was in her name, and if I could, get the truck and bring it back to her.
She knew that if she got that truck, she would make really mad. Mad to the point that she told everyone that if anything happened to her, her husband did it. You said that in there, didn't you?
Yes.
He told Julie he wanted a divorce at the beginning of 2004. A few months later, Julie took a restraining order out against her husband. In an interview with police, Julie's neighbor, April Valles, also said Julie purchased a gun out of fear.
Who did she say she was afraid of?
Her husband.
With a car that kept breaking down in the middle of winter, Julie needed the truck back. So Skaggs and Julie met at a Jerry Mart in Rineyville the night of December 30th, before heading out together in Harvey's work van.
And from there, everything went haywire.
Both Harvey and Julie told others about their plans and agreed to be out for no more than a few hours.
A lot of things went bad.
Julie's co-workers told investigators the truck was in the husband's garage.
And Julie ended up getting murdered that night.
At 9:30 p.m., Julie, who was still with Skaggs, talked on the phone with her friend from church, Linda Davis.
And she also made a statement, something about, well, things aren't looking good, maybe we're not going to get it tonight. We're waiting for them to bring the truck.
Julie had planned to stay the night at Linda's so her husband would not be able to find her. Around 11:30, the last phone call Julie made was to her mom.
As always, she says, "Mom, I'm fine, don't worry." I always say, be safe. And that's where she kind of left it. And that's really the last thing that I was able to say to her.
At that point, Skaggs said two masked men jumped in his van. They told Skaggs to start driving. Skaggs said the man behind Julie started hitting her. He said he was strangled with what felt like a shoestring.
They yanked me backwards out of the seat.
He told investigators that's when he lost consciousness, around 2 a.m.
I woke up. Julie was gargling.
Skaggs carried her to the entrance of the ER. The doctor said Julie was already dead.
The thing that I noticed that was quite striking was two things. One, she was not breathing. Other is that she had severe trauma to her head.
Neither the ER doctor nor Kentucky's chief medical examiner could determine Julie's exact time of death. After the attack, Skaggs was interviewed by police at the hospital and said he couldn't remember any other details after claiming to lose consciousness. We looked into all of the evidence that was outlined in the trial, plus nearly 1,000 pages worth of investigative files from Kentucky State Police. Harvey Skaggs was interrogated at least twice, but initially there were two primary suspects, Skaggs and Julie Boyd's husband. Police went to the husband's house days after the murder.
Searched that residence, took photographs, of Mr. Boyd and collected some evidence there as well.
Records show that a handgun appearing to have blood on it was taken as evidence after Skaggs said the abductors had a gun. We found out of more than a dozen requests from KSP for evidence examination, Skaggs is listed as a suspect on all of them. The husband is listed twice as a possible suspect in reference to a small handgun, according to investigators' notes. Further testing revealed no blood was found on the gun.
The idea is that there was simply no evidence linking him to the scene in any manner.
Here's the timeline from the investigative file we obtained. When Julie phoned her friend around 9:30 p.m. saying they were waiting on them to bring the truck, her husband and his girlfriend had just arrived home.
We stayed home that night, yes.
They say they spent the rest of the night making Jell-O shots and watching TV. We tried to reach the husband to talk about Julie's death. He did not respond. He was never arrested or charged with anything in connection with Julie's murder. A week or so later, Skaggs asked his girlfriend to marry him. She said yes. Friends told investigators he'd been planning to propose. Shortly after, police searched their home and took the ring he proposed with. It was on her pinky at the time.
It wouldn't fit over my knuckle on my ring finger.
The ring was a rare Duchess cut, the same cut as Julie Boyd's engagement ring, which was one of 3 rings missing from her when she arrived at the hospital. During the trial, both sides presented experts with contradictory testimonies. Either it was the ring or there was no way of knowing for sure. Both Debbie White and Julie's husband say this was her engagement ring. Julie's wedding band and another decorative ring she wore have never been found. One thing is certain, Skaggs was not in possession of the ring the night he brought Julie to the hospital. It's one of many questions that surround this case.
We don't know exactly what happened to Julie Boyd because no one was there to witness it.
Skaggs claimed it wasn't Julie's ring. He was arrested for Julie's murder in 2005. The trial was in 2006. Prosecutor David Abner said he spent it disproving Harvey's story of what happened that night.
There was no indication, for example, that she was beaten inside the van.
While there was blood inside the van and on the passenger seat, there was a significant amount on the exterior of the van as well. Investigators say the blood spatter proves that Julie was killed outside of the van. The murder weapon and place where she was killed have never been found. No DNA was found under Julie's nails. Skaggs' DNA was not found on her purse or any potential weapons in the van. There was one bloody fingerprint outside of the van, which did not match Skaggs, according to testimony at trial. As for Julie,
I received some exemplar prints of the victim, and because of the quality of those prints, I was not able to make a positive ident or be able to say they weren't her prints.
There's no indication that anyone else's fingerprints were tested, according to the request for evidence examinations.
Something that people want. I mean, that I would like to have everything answered, but you don't get that because people are who they are. They're imperfect. They do things for strange reasons and no reasons and terrible reasons.
They didn't want to know about anybody else. They didn't care about anybody else.
Skaggs was convicted for Julie Boyd's murder and robbery. He's currently serving a life sentence in prison at Green River Correctional Complex with the possibility of parole at 25 years.
You know, I don't know that the justice system always investigates everything as thoroughly as they should.
Skaggs has appealed twice and lost both appeals. He'll be up for parole within 10 years. He continues to claim innocence.
One of the things you have to know is what was presented to the jury in that trial. That's the playing field. That's the place where everything takes place.
There were, you know, things that they never found out about her death. So there is, you know, has always been questions about, you know, what exactly happened.
Debbie White went on to say that she doesn't let Julie's murder define her. In the 15 years since her daughter's death, she changed Kentucky state law to allow for more than one victim impact statement at trial sentencing. She also holds grief workshops that have helped hundreds of people. For Focus, I'm Kristen Goodwillie.